I'm a single dad, and I've been waiting since 2010 for just one chance to prove I'm still worth something. A rain splattered the cracked sidewalk as Eric Dawson adjusted his cheap thrift store tie and squinted up at the building in front of him. A towering glass and steel corporate block that looked nothing like the kind of place he belonged. His heart pounded with a mixture of dread and hope. He had been turned away so many times, he'd lost count. But this one felt different. Maybe because it was raining. Maybe because he had just enough bus fare to make it here, but not enough to get back. He rubbed his hands together, not to warm them, but to steady the shake. His resume, a thin sheet of creased, rain-smudged paper, was clenched inside a damp manila folder. It had only 2 real jobs listed, both more than 5 years old. One he was fired from after missing too many shifts when Lily got sick. The other dissolved when the small hardware shop shut down during the pandemic. The security guard at the front desk barely looked up. "Interview?" he asked. Eric nodded. "Suite 4-2. Eric shuffled down the polished hallway, eyes catching his reflection in every pane of glass. A man in his early 40s, tired beyond his years, face worn with sleepless nights and missed meals, trying his hardest not to look broken. He didn't see the paper taped to the corner wall. Fulton and Lewis engineering interviews moved to suite 409. Eric knocked lightly on the door marked 402, then turned the knob. 3 people turned as he entered. A middle-aged woman with a navy blazer and warm, but measured eyes, a young man in a cardigan, typing on a laptop, and a gray-haired gentleman with a soft smile who reminded Eric of someone's kind uncle. There was a chair across from them, slightly off-center, like it had been waiting for him. "You must be Eric," the woman said. He hesitated. "Yes, Mom, Eric Dawson. Please, have a seat." He sat slowly, as though afraid the chair would vanish if he moved too quickly. The gray-haired man leaned forward. "Tell us a little about yourself." Eric's fingers fidgeted on the folder in his lap. "Well, I'm a single dad. My daughter's name is Lily. She's 12 now. I've worked in construction, plumbing, repairs, anything I could find. I don't have a degree or fancy letters next to my name, but I work hard. I don't give up easy. And I've been waiting since 2010. Waiting for what?" asked the young man, lifting his eyes. Eric's voice cracked just slightly. "For someone to see that I'm still trying. That I haven't given up. That I matter. Not just for what I've lost, but for what I can still do." There was a long pause. The woman glanced at her papers, then frowned gently. "Eric, this isn't the maintenance job interview." Eric blinked. "It's not? This is the final round of interviews for the Community Impact Fellowship. We select one person who's overcome hardship, who shows leadership and resilience. They receive a year of paid mentorship, job placement, housing assistance, and a scholarship for their child's education." Eric's hands trembled. I must be in the wrong room. I'm sorry. I should go." "No," said the older man softly. "Maybe you're in the right room." Two days earlier, Lily had been sitting on the kitchen floor, trying to fix her broken school binder with tape. Eric had walked in holding a sack of discounted groceries and a small smile that masked how empty his wallet had become. "You hungry, bug?" he'd asked. Lily nodded. "Can I have eggs?" He paused. "Only one left. I'll split it." That night, they ate toast and half an egg each. Lily never complained. Not once. Not when they were evicted 3 years ago. Not when the power got shut off twice last winter. Not when Eric forgot her birthday because he was working a triple shift. She just held his hand quietly after dinner and said, "You're doing your best, Daddy." I know. And that's why he applied for every job he could find online, even ones he wasn't qualified for. Because someday, she'd look back and say, "My dad never quit." I'm back in room 402. "You said you've been waiting since 2010. The woman asked. "That's when your wife passed." Eric nodded. "Leukemia. She was 29. We had no insurance, no family to help. Just me, a baby girl, and a funeral bill I'm still paying off." Silence again. Then the older man leaned forward. "Eric, tell me one thing. Why should we believe in you?" Eric looked down, then raised his eyes, wet but firm. "Because Lily does. Every morning she hugs me like I'm a superhero. And every night I cry where she can't see me. Because I don't feel like one. But I keep showing up. I keep fighting. I just need someone, one person, to believe in me too." The woman slowly closed the file in front of her. "Mr. Dawson," she said, "I'm going to ask you something different." Eric braced himself. "What would you do with this opportunity if it was yours?" He didn't even pause. "Buy her school shoes that fit. Fix her front tooth. Let her join the art program she dreams about. And finally be able to sleep a full night without wondering if I failed as a father." Her eyes glossed. "Thank you, Eric. We'll be in touch." He stood slowly, nodded, left the room, still not realizing the actual interview for Fulton and Lewis was happening down the hall in room 409, with candidates who wore tailored suits and practiced elevator pitches. But sometimes life has its own interview process. 3 days later, Eric was refilling vending machines when his flip phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. "Mr. Dawson." "Yes. This is Clara Monroe. From the fellowship program." His heart dropped. "I'm so sorry again. I didn't mean to crash the wrong interview." "You didn't crash anything," she said gently. "You changed the atmosphere of the entire room." He blinked. "We want to offer you the fellowship. You were exactly who we were looking for. You just didn't know it." Eric didn't speak. He couldn't. His breath caught. His knees buckled slightly. "For Lily," she added softly. Tears spilled freely now. "No shame, no hiding. For Lily," he whispered. The apartment smelled different that morning. Not of mold or cheap detergent, but something softer. Hope, maybe. For the first time in years, Eric Dawson didn't wake up with a knot in his stomach. He lay still for a moment, staring at the cracked ceiling of their tiny one-bedroom unit, listening to Lily's soft breathing from the mattress on the floor beside him. He turned his head slightly. She was still curled up, hugging a stuffed rabbit that had survived more rough days than most adults. Her hair had fallen over her face. She looked peaceful, unburdened, like she didn't know the world had finally cracked open. Just a little. For her father. He reached for his flip phone again, as if needing to double check it wasn't a dream. "We want to offer you the fellowship." Those words kept echoing. He got up, quietly. No creaking, no clatter. He moved like a man who'd just been handed a fragile new future and didn't want to break it. At the kitchen counter, Eric poured hot water over 2 tea bags. They didn't have milk, and the sugar jar had only dust in it, but it didn't matter. He was going to orientation today. He was going to wear the donated dress shirt that Clara Monroe from the fellowship had sent over. with a handwritten note that said, "For day one, you've already earned it." He folded the paper neatly and placed it in his pocket. Lily woke up to the sound of the closet creaking. Her voice was groggy. "Daddy." He turned with a soft smile. "Morning, bug." She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Then her gaze settled on him, in the clean shirt, tucked into jeans with an actual belt. His beard was trimmed, his hair combed. "You look like someone in a movie," she whispered. He chuckled, kneeling beside her. "Big day today? You got a job." "Not exactly. But I got a start. And this time it feels real." She nodded slowly. "I'm proud of you." He hugged her tightly. "No matter what happens, you remember one thing. I'm doing all this for you." "I know," she whispered. 2 later that day. Downtown office building, the fellowship's orientation hall was filled with nervous energy. Eric stood in a room with 9 other fellows, men and women of all ages and backgrounds. Former veterans, single moms, a teacher who had lived in her car. Everyone wore the same unsure expression, half amazement, half fear. The program director, Clara Monroe, stepped up to the podium. She was kind, direct, and had a presence that made people straighten their backs. "We chose each of you not because of how many degrees you hold," she began, "but because of how many times you've stood back up after life knocked you down." Eric felt something bloom in his chest, like he was seen for the first time, not as a number or a file, but as a story still being written. "We don't just offer support here," Clara continued. "We invest in character, in persistence, and in purpose." Well, she paused, letting the silence hold. "Now, I'd like one of you to share your why." No one moved. Then Clara looked straight at Eric. "Eric Dawson, would you be willing?" His throat tightened, but he stood up slowly, walked to the front, and took the mic. 2. "I'm not used to talking in front of people," he began. "I've spent more time on sidewalks than stages." A few chuckles. "But I guess I'm here because I never gave up, even when everything in me wanted to." He looked out at the quiet room. "In 2010, my wife died. Lily was just a few months old. I didn't know how to raise a baby. I barely knew how to feed myself. But I learned. And every time I thought I couldn't do more, I did." He swallowed hard. "Every night, I prayed not for money or miracles. I prayed that one day Lily would say, 'You did your best, Dad.'" Silence. Deep silence. Eric stepped back from the mic, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel small. He felt necessary. 3 weeks later, Eric's days changed. He began waking up at 6:00 a.m., dropped Lily at a new after-school program the fellowship helped pay for, attended career development classes from 8 to 4, met with mentors twice a week, and every Friday, they had purpose circles, where fellows shared one thing they were proud of that week. Week 1, Eric said, "I built a budget spreadsheet. I didn't even know how to open Excel before." A week 2, "I fixed the neighbor's leaky sink without charging her." Week 3, Lily drew a picture of me wearing a cape. He framed it. But change is never without its battles. On the 4th week, Eric received a call from the landlord. "We're raising rent by $200." Eric's heart sank. But I thought, it's market adjustment. Either pay or move. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, looking over numbers. His fellowship stipend covered most things, but not a rent hike. He considered quitting the program and picking up labor shifts again. That's when Lily sat beside him. She looked down at the numbers, then at him. We can move again, Daddy. I don't mind. His voice cracked. You should mind. Sweetheart, you should be tired of this. I'm not tired of being with you, she said. Next morning, Eric walked into the fellowship office and explained everything to Clara. She listened carefully, then smiled. I was hoping you'd come. We have an emergency housing grant for situations exactly like this. Eric exhaled. Deeply, gratefully. Sometimes, Clara said, asking for help isn't weakness. It's strength. 8 weeks in, Eric was placed into a paid internship with a company called Iron Road Utilities. They repaired old city water lines. It wasn't glamorous, but it was work Eric understood. Work with tools, sweat, and grit. And for the first time, work that came with health insurance. His supervisor, Martin, was a tall, no-nonsense man with a clipboard always in hand. After Eric's first week, Martin pulled him aside. You know, when they said we'd be getting a fellowship intern, I expected someone soft. Eric chuckled. I've been called worse. Martin grinned. But you're solid. You show up. You learn. You hustle. Eric looked down, humbled. Just trying to make my daughter proud. Well, Mr. Dawson, Martin said, you're doing a hell of a job. Meanwhile, Lily, she was thriving. The after-school art program awakened something in her. She began drawing everything. Her school, her dad, the bus driver who smiled at her every morning. And people began to notice. Her teacher called Eric one day. Sir, your daughter, she's special. Her art is incredible. Eric felt something warm in his chest. Thank you. I'll tell her. But Lily didn't need to hear it secondhand. She already knew, because her dad, once lost and forgotten, now came home with paint on his hands from helping her color. With food in bags, and with stories in his eyes. Eric had never seen Lily dance before. But there she was, in the tiny living room. Barefoot on cold linoleum, twirling with her arms stretched out like a bird in flight. Her sketchpad lay open on the couch, filled with bright, messy illustrations of superheroes and sunsets, of cities made of light and fathers with wings. He leaned on the doorframe, still in his iron road vest, watching her in silent awe. Someone's in a good mood, he said. Lily spun and collapsed on the couch with a grin. I got picked? For what? The city art contest? They're hanging one of my drawings at the library. And they said they want to meet you. Eric's face flushed. Me? Why? Because my drawing was called My Hero Wears Work Boots. And it's you, Dad. Something deep inside him shifted, like a broken clock finally ticking again. No award, no paycheck, no scholarship could have made him feel what that one sentence did. But as joy bloomed in that room, something else arrived, too. A quiet knock at the door. Eric opened it. The mailman handed him a thick envelope. From Fulton and Lewis Engineering. The job interview he was supposed to attend. Inside the envelope, Dear Mr. Dawson, we apologize that we didn't get to meet you at your scheduled interview. We were impressed by your original application and wanted to extend one final opportunity. We've recently opened a managerial position in operations. Given your field experience and recent fellowship enrollment, we'd like to fast-track you for consideration. If interested, please contact us by next Friday. Eric sat down slowly. Fulton and Lewis, a salary nearly double what he made now. Benefits, stability, but also full-time hours, travel, and no flexibility. He looked over at Lily, now humming to herself, oblivious to the weight of the paper in his hands. He had a choice. stay with Iron Root, where he had a slower climb but balance, mentorship, and room to grow at his pace, or chase the job that had eluded him since 2010. 2. The storm before the choice that week. Everything seemed to accelerate. Lily's school called. She's been selected for a gifted art program in the summer. It's intense, but it could lead to a scholarship. The catch: the program was in a different part of the city. Eric would have to rearrange work hours, or risk pulling her out. Then Iron Root announced budget tightening. Interns wouldn't be kept past 6 months, unless someone stepped up into full-time staff. Martin called Eric into his office. "You're my top pick," he said. "You've earned it, but you'll need to commit. Full-time, on call some weekends, not glamorous, but it's yours if you want it." Eric nodded, but didn't answer. Because now, he had 3 paths. 1. Take the high-paying Fulton and Lewis job, but miss most of Lily's life. 2. Take Iron Root's full-time offer, stable but still tight. 3. Stay in the fellowship and risk losing both options. That night, he barely slept. At 2:00 a.m., he got up and walked to the kitchen window. He stared at the moon, breathing through tight lungs. He whispered to no one, "God, I've waited since 2010. I don't want to mess this up." 2. Flashback 2010. The hospital room. It was raining then, too. Just like now, his wife Anna had held his hand with what strength she had left. "You won't know what to do at first," she said, "but you'll figure it out." He had nodded through tears. "I don't know how to raise a baby." "Just love her," she whispered. "Even when it's hard." He never forgot those words. Back to the present. Friday morning arrived. Deadline day. He stood outside the mailbox, the Fulton and Lewis response form in one hand, the phone number already dialed in his pocket. Then Lily stepped outside, her arms wrapped around his waist, before he even heard her coming. "You okay?" she asked. He looked down. "I think so." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded paper. It was a new drawing. Eric in a yellow hard hat, standing on a bridge made of gears and vines. Below it was written, "You don't need a cape to carry a whole world. You just need to care." He folded the letter from Fulton and Lewis and didn't mail it. 2 weeks later, Iron Root workshop. Eric stood beside Martin, watching a group of high school interns tour the facility. "You sure about this?" Martin asked. "Yeah," Eric said. "I want to help them the way you helped me." Martin grinned. "We're starting a mentorship program next month. You up for it?" Eric smiled. "Sign me up." Lily's summer program. She painted a mural across the school's east wall. A massive college of workers, teachers, parents, and children. At the center, a father with dirt on his face and a smile in his eyes. She titled it, "Work is Love Made Visible." A local journalist covered the story. The article was called, "The Girl Who Painted Her Father's Heart on a Wall." Rain again. It always seemed to rain when life had something to say. Eric Dawson stood under the flickering street lamp outside the pharmacy, one hand in his jacket pocket, the other clutching a white paper bag with a red label that read Kyon Phi ADNANTALTSTLTSENCLOST. He didn't open it right away. He couldn't. Inside that envelope could be nothing. Just a routine check, up formality. Or it could be everything. The crack in the road he'd worked so hard to stay steady on. He looked up at the dark sky, breathing slowly through his nose. "Not now," he whispered. "Please, not now." 3 days earlier, he had gone in for a simple physical. Routine. required for iron roots full-time role, blood pressure, reflexes, a few blood samples. He joked with the nurse about being too old to be nervous. But when the doctor returned, he wasn't smiling. "We found something unusual," the doctor had said. "It's probably nothing, but we want to run more tests." "Like what?" "There's a shadow on your right lung, Mr. Dawson. Could be a false reading. Could be more." Eric didn't say much. Just nodded. Just stared at the floor. When he left the clinic, he didn't tell Lily. He couldn't. Not when she was painting again, laughing again, becoming a child again. He had learned long ago. Some truths don't belong in a child's world. 2. That evening Lily was brushing her teeth when she paused in the mirror. "Dad," she called. "Yeah, your eye looks tired." He walked over. "Which one?" She pointed. "That one. Are you okay?" He smiled the way all tired fathers do. "Just need some rest, bug." She nodded, not convinced. Put Who back to the pharmacy. Eric slowly opened the envelope. 1 page. 3 bold words circled at the bottoms. "Further investigation recommended." His chest tightened, not from fear, but from a memory. 2010. Anna. That moment when, "We just need to run more tests," had turned into, "You should prepare yourself." Pooh. The decision, he walked back home under the rain, and didn't mention the results. Not the next day. Not when Lily showed him her newest drawing. A lighthouse standing against stormy waves. Not even when Clara Monroe called to congratulate him officially for completing the fellowship. "You're a new man, Eric," she said. "You have a future now." And still, he said nothing. Because the thing about being a parent is, you carry the weight so your child doesn't have to. The doctor's call a week later. The hospital called. "We need to schedule a biopsy." Eric's voice was quiet. "Is it serious?" "We don't know yet, but we need to be sure." He looked over at Lily, lying on the couch in her pajamas, eating dry cereal out of a mug and giggling at her own sketchbook. "Okay," he said. "Schedule it." "Do you have someone who can come with you?" He looked at the peeling walls, the second-hand furniture, the hope in his daughter's eyes. "No," he whispered. "I'll come alone." The secret leaks? You can hide a secret in silence. You can bury it under smiles. But some truths leak through. One morning, Lily found his hospital wristband in the laundry. She stared at it for a long time before tucking it into her backpack. She didn't ask him about it. Not at first. But she began drawing differently. Fathers with tired eyes. Lighthouses cracked in the middle. Superheroes with lightning bolts stitched across their chests. When Eric asked why the drawings looked sad, she just shrugged. "They're not sad, they're brave." The day of the biopsy, he said he was going to a training workshop. He kissed her forehead and left before dawn. At the hospital, he waited for hours. Alone, he stared at the ceiling as they prepared the needle, the monitor beeping beside him. His last thought before anesthesia kicked in was of her first birthday. The cake. The laugh. The way she'd smashed icing in his beard, and he whispered, just before drifting off, "Please let me stay." 2. Meanwhile, Lily sighed. She skipped art class that day. Told her teacher she wasn't feeling well. She sat in the school library, flipping through a book called Things Dads Don't Say. On page 17 was a quote. "A father is the quiet storm that keeps the roof from falling, even as it leaks on his own head." She closed the book and started to cry, for the first time in months. That night Eric came home late. She was pretending to sleep on the couch. He sat beside her, his movements slower than usual. She didn't move, didn't speak. He gently placed something beside her. A crumpled drawing. It was her own art, a sketch of them both on a park bench. On the back, he had written, "If I go, you keep drawing, you keep flying." She opened her eyes. "What does that mean?" He blinked. "You were awake. Are you sick, Dad?" He froze. Silence. Then a nod. "Maybe. I don't know yet." She sat up. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you've been through enough. I didn't want to steal your sunlight." She climbed into his lap, hugged him so tight it hurt. "You are my sunlight." The follow-up 2 weeks later, the doctor called again. Benign. The word echoed like a bell in a silent church. Benign. Not cancer. Not this time. Eric sat down on the edge of the bathtub and wept. A quiet, shaking release of every fear that had clung to him since the envelope arrived. Lily found him there. Hugged him again. Said nothing. She didn't need to. 2. At the gallery opening, Lily's mural was chosen as the cover for the city's annual Art in Motion project. Dozens gathered in the library that summer. Artists, reporters, and strangers. Her mural spanned the entire back wall. At the center was a new edition of father and daughter, back to back, standing under a cracked but glowing lighthouse. Below it, she had written in bold letters. He said he'd been waiting since 2010, but I think the world had been waiting for him. Who? The autumn wind rustled through the thinning trees as Daniel stepped onto the stage at the local community center. Wearing a simple black suit, his son Jeremy seated in the front row with tears already glistening in his eyes. The crowd was larger than expected. Faces from his past, from his struggles, from every chapter that brought him here. All gathered to honor a man who had walked through fire without asking for applause. Daniel wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't a millionaire. He was a single dad who had waited since 2010. And now, they were listening. He took a deep breath and tapped the mic gently. 12 years ago, I walked into the wrong interview room, or maybe it was exactly the right one. The crowd chuckled, and a few nodded knowingly. Some had seen the news segment that went viral. Others had read the local articles titled, "The Dad Who Never Quit." But I wasn't looking for a job that day. I was looking for hope. And I didn't know it then, but sitting in the wrong room gave me the right direction. He paused. Jeremy looked up at him, proud. "You see," Daniel continued, "I didn't have much to give my son. Not money, not status. But I gave him what I had: love, honesty, effort. And even when I failed, I showed up the next day. Because that's what single parents do. We show up. Broken, tired, angry, scared. We still show up." A quiet sniffle rippled from the back row. A mother clutched her daughter's hand. "I got laughed at," Daniel said. "Mocked. Told I was too old, too late, and too behind. I've been a janitor, a dishwasher, a night shift stalker, a warehouse temp. But every job I ever did was to keep my boy fed and warm. That made me rich in ways a paycheck can't define." He looked around. "Some of you may know that a few months ago, the tech company I now work at asked me to lead a new division. Not because of my degree, which I never had, but because of my experience and my heart." A stunned murmur went through the crowd. Daniel smiled humbly. "And I said yes, because this story was never about failure. It was about becoming." He turned to Jeremy. "And my son, my boy, he made me a father who never gave up. Jeremy stood, walked to the stage, and hugged his father tight. The crowd stood with them in thunderous applause. Cameras flashed. Reporters took notes. But Daniel only saw Jeremy, his son, his reason, his proof. Later that night, Jeremy and Daniel walked back home under the same autumn sky. Their small apartment, once cramped and crumbling, was now warm and filled with peace. On the wall hung framed photos. Daniel at the warehouse, Jeremy at school, and the two of them at the park bench, where dreams were born over shared sandwiches. Jeremy sat on the couch, curled up with a blanket. "Dad, yeah, buddy. I'm proud of you." Daniel turned from the kitchen, eyes misty. "I'm proud of you too, Juror. You made me the man I always hoped I could be." And with that, the world felt right. No more waiting rooms, no more apologies, just a father and son, finally home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Tell us in the comments, what part of this story made you stop and think? Thank you for giving us your time. The next journey will go even deeper